March 30th, 1981, Washington, D.C. In less than 2 seconds, 6 gunshots would nearly change the course of American history. The man behind the trigger was John Hinckley Jr., a deeply disturbed individual suffering from erotomania, a delusional belief that someone, in this case, Jodie Foster, was secretly in love with him. He even enrolled in a writing course at Yale University because he had read she was a student there from People magazine. Hinckley had become obsessed after repeatedly watching the 1976 film Taxi Driver, identifying with the character Travis Bickle, a man who attempts to assassinate a presidential candidate. Hinckley was convinced that a notorious act of violence would elevate him in Foster's eyes and prove himself worthy of her affection. At first, Hinckley began tailing President Jimmy Carter and found it surprisingly easy to get close to him, even getting within 1 foot from him at one of the president's events. However, he was arrested at Nashville International Airport for illegal possession of a firearm. His family thought it best to seek help and placed him under the care of a psychiatrist. Following Reagan's election victory, Hinckley redirected his fixation toward the newly elected president. On March 30th, President Reagan delivered a luncheon speech at the Washington Hilton Hotel. The location was considered one of the safest in the city, equipped with an enclosed passageway known as President's Walk. At 2:27 p.m., as Reagan exited the hotel and waved to the crowd, Hinckley stood just 15 feet away, having slipped through multiple layers of security. Without warning, Hinckley crouched and fired 6 shots in 1.7 seconds. The first bullet struck White House Press Secretary James Brady in the head, causing catastrophic brain damage. The second bullet hit D.C. police officer Thomas Delahanty in the neck. Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy deliberately stepped into the line of fire, spreading his arms to shield the president. He was shot in the chest. The final bullet ricocheted off the armored limousine and struck President Reagan under the left arm. It broke a rib, punctured his lung, and stopped less than an inch from his heart. Secret Service agent Jerry Parr instantly shoved Reagan into the limousine, a decision that would save his life. At first, no one realized the president had been shot, but inside the car, Reagan began coughing up blood. Parr immediately diverted the motorcade to George Washington University Hospital, abandoning protocol that called for returning to the White House. That split-second choice likely saved the president's life. Reagan arrived conscious but in shock, having lost over half his blood volume. As doctors rushed him into surgery, he joked with his wife Nancy, "Honey, I forgot to duck." Before anesthesia, he looked at the medical team and said, "I hope you're all Republicans." The surgery was successful. Against the odds, the 70-year-old president survived. As Reagan lay in surgery, however, confusion erupted inside the White House. Secretary of State Alexander Haig infamously told reporters, "I am in control here." The statement was constitutionally incorrect. Haig was fourth in line of succession. Meanwhile, Cold War tensions ran high. The U.S. military briefly raised alert levels amid fears of Soviet exploitation. Vice President George H.W. Bush rushed back to Washington, but no section of the 25th Amendment was ever formally invoked. In 1982, Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity, confined to a psychiatric hospital. A verdict that stunned the nation and forever changed how America viewed the insanity defense. James Brady survived, but the bullet left him permanently disabled. Officer Thomas Delahanty lived and returned to duty. Secret Service agent Tim McCarthy survived as well, and would later rise to become chief of police in Orland Park, Illinois. Out of the bloodshed came lasting consequence. Brady transformed his suffering into advocacy, becoming the face of the gun control movement and lending his name to the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, legislation that President Reagan would later support, born from the attack that nearly ended his presidency. Reagan believed his survival had a purpose. His approval rating soared, his resolve hardened, and his presidency moved forward, shaped by a moment that could have ended it. 1 gunman, 6 shots, and a nation forced to confront vulnerability at the highest level of power. Let's fast forward to 2016. Ronald Reagan had been gone for more than a decade when a federal judge ruled that John Hinckley Jr. could be released, concluding he no longer posed a threat, a decision that reignited outrage from both the Reagan family and the public. After years of strict supervision, a judge approved his unconditional release in June 2022. Hinckley was freed under strict conditions, required to live with his mother, remained under close supervision, and barred from contacting victims' families or consuming violent media. Soon after, Hinckley attempted to re-enter public life by sharing music and planning live performances. Those efforts were quickly met with public outrage and security concerns, leading to canceled shows and renewed controversy over his release. The bullets fired that day missed their ultimate goal. They reshaped lives, laws, and a presidency forever. March 30th, 1981 remains a reminder how close history came to taking a very different path. If you found this story interesting, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below on who or what we should cover next.